All right, so we're going to start off with a very simple example of turning a standard Class C network into two different subnets. So this is what we were given. We were given a 192.168.1.0 network, and we know it's Class C because we see the standard Class C subnet mask here, and we need to turn this into two subnets. So how do we do that? Well, if you remember back to the basic math, it depends on how many bits that we borrow. So for every bit we borrow, it's the power of 2. So if we borrow one host bit, 2 to the power 1, that equals 2 subnets. So then that means we only need to borrow one host bit. Now remember, with a Class C, the last octet, the last 8 bits are the host portion. So what we're going to do is we're going to start from the left and work our way to the right. So we always start from the left and work our way to the right. But in this example, we only need to borrow the first one because that accomplishes what we need. So we're going to borrow that one. We're going to leave 7 left for the host portion. That's going to give us 2 to the power of 1, meaning 2 subnets. And we know that there are 7 host bits left. So what are the amount of addresses per a subnet? In other words, what are the total amount, meaning the block size of the actual subnet, and how many are usable? Well, again, it's 2 to the power of how many that are left. So we know that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 left. So we simply do 2 to the power 7. That tells us the total block size, meaning the entire address space, is 128 addresses per subnet. But remember, each subnet has a network address. That's going to be the very first address. And the very last one is a broadcast address, and neither of those are usable. So now we need to know how many are usable. We simply minus 2 from that. So 2 to the 7 minus 2, that tells us that the usable amount is 126 addresses per subnet. The next question is, well, what are the valid subnets? Well, I'm going to show you on this screen. They are, the first one is the 192.168.1.0, which we're simply just stating off the network address. And the second one is 192.168.1.128. And this will make more sense when I fill out this table. And then lastly, what's the new subnet mask? So we started off with this one right here, but remember, we borrowed this 1 bit. So we have to do that math, 128 plus 64 plus 32. Well, we only borrowed 1, so it's 128. So this is going to change in the last octet from 0 to 128. Or we can simply call it a /25 because we have 8 plus 8 plus 8 plus 1 equals a /25. So let's go ahead and let's fill this out. Let me get rid of all my highlighting. So with IP version 4 addressing, we always start at 0. So the total block size is 128. So this counts as one IP address, so we need to add 127 more. So 127 plus 1 more is going to be a total block size for this subnet of 128 addresses. So 0 to 127 is going to be the range for the first subnet. And this is going to be the network address that identifies this network. Now, remember, we have to use that combined. And let me get all my highlighting on here. So this network address here, and I'll highlight both of them for now, even though we haven't put that one. But this is how we identify this. We say, okay, I'm on network 192.168.1.0/25. And that's just a shorthand way of simply saying 255.255.255.128 for the subnet mask. So let's put in the second one. So we have 0 to 127 here. Let me go ahead and put in the next address. So the very next address is going to be the network address for the second subnet. So now we know the network address for both of them, which we see down here. 192.168.1.0 and .128. So these are our network addresses, and remember, we always need to refer to the subnet mask, so the easy way is just simply to say /25. So we know that this one begins with 128. Well, the last is always going to be 255, so we go to 255. And hopefully this makes sense, and it's simple enough so far. So now what about the actual usable IP addresses, the first to the last one? So what I did is just did the first to the last, instead of actually typing in every single one, because if you can imagine, that would be a very long table, and we don't have the space on this presentation to do that. So this is what we do. It's very simple. Well, what's the next address after 0? It's going to be 1, so we simply put in 1 right here. And what's the address before 127 that we see here? Well, it's going to be 126. So very simple. And so what we get here, and let's just highlight everything for our first subnet here. So for our first subnet, we know that the network address, the first address of it is going to be 192.168.1.0. We know that the broadcast address is going to be 192.168.1.27. And we know that the usable range is going to be 192.168.1.1 down to 192.168.1.126. So these are the usable IP addresses right here. And then we can repeat this process for the second subnet. So after 128 would be 129, and then before 255 is going to be 254. So for the second subnet, we'll highlight this one as well. The network address is going to be 192.168.1.128. The broadcast address is going to be 192.168.1.255. And the usable range is going to be from 129 down to 254. Fairly simple, right? Well, let's go ahead and let's visualize this with an actual diagram. So what we're going to do on the next video is I broke this up into a diagram so you can actually visualize this. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at that. Well, I hope that you enjoyed today's video and you learned a lot from it. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up and also consider subscribing to my YouTube channel. Now, if you're interested in taking this full course or just learning more about it, check out the video description down below because I've included a link where you can learn more about the course and enroll into it if you'd like. So again, thanks for watching my video. I appreciate it and I look forward to seeing you guys at the next video. Take care.